It's something about baseball that's magical. Just the grass, the green grass, it's magical.
It's a lot like life. You know, you get instant results in baseball.
I think it's the skill of the players. You really have to be a skillful person to play the game and to play it well.
So many nuances, so many different things that come up. You'll find different things happen all the time.
There's history in this game, unlike any American sport. It is what connects us to our national character, Walt Whitman once said. But baseball is more than a national game. Its history is written in every community and city in America. Baseball was played in Oakland as far back as the 19th century. It was played by carpenters and blacksmiths, the wealthy and the poor, the young and the old. Teams such as the Oakland Red Sox, the Pierce Giants, and the Oakland Larks were all Bay Area baseball clubs. Green Hood in Moran, a local clothing store, sponsored a team in 1886. Its best player was George Van Halteren, who would later go on to play in the major leagues. Van Halteren was said to be the first great baseball star from the Bay Area.
My first game I recall was in 1922. I went with my dad to watch the Oakland Oaks at the Emerville ballpark. We were playing the hated San Francisco Seals.
I do remember my uncle taking me to an Oaks game in Emeryville when I was about 12 years old, and I remember it cost 25 cents to get in the park.
Ernie Lombardi played for the Oaks when I was a kid. Briefly played right field. So to say I had seen Ernie Lombardi play baseball, not many people don't even know who Ernie Lombardi is.
The son of an immigrant Italian grocer, Ernie Lombardi was born in Oakland in 1908. He would play 17 seasons in the major leagues, win 2 batting titles and an MVP. He was enshrined in the Hall of Fame. For Oakland, it was just the beginning.
Sam Berkovich had these minor league teams that played on weekends.
A lot of black stars who used to play ball for him.
Berkovich & Sons Furniture was an Oakland institution. Its stores sponsored local baseball teams for over 50 years. More major league talent was produced by Berkovich teams than by any city in the country.
We had 4,000 kids play baseball for us, from 29 till 80.
If you had a book with names in it, you could pick out name after name after name.
And it starts with Frank Robinson, and it goes to Vada Pinson, and it's Kurt Flood.
When he was about 12 years old, Kurt Flood used to work in my furniture store.
Then there's Joe Morgan. Then you get to the Ricky Hendersons and the Dave Stewarts.
And of course, on our last team, we had a pretty good ball player, Randy Johnson.
All those guys came from this area and played Sunday ball for Berkovich.
I did play for Sam Berkovich. I sure did.
Nearly 3/4 of a century ago, baseball was on display in every city and town in America. Its greatest players were building the game into a national pastime. But there were others in every part of America who would inspire a generation. Locally, Sammy Workman, who not only overcame the racial barriers of the time, but also his own physical limitations, managed a career with the Oakland Larks. He would display his baseball abilities at exhibition games. Toni Stone, who lived in Oakland, was the first woman, black or white, to play professional baseball in a men's league. While playing for the Indianapolis Clowns, she singled off Satchel Paige. In baseball parks throughout the Bay Area, many of the game's greatest players would be on display.
I remember in 1927, the Yanks came out here with Lou Gehrig at the Oakland ballpark in Emeryville.
Satchel Paige we saw him too. He had a barn-funded team. Also played at the Oakland ballpark. So if you hung around the Oakland ballpark long enough, you'd see everybody.
They called the league the WCNBL, the West Coast Negro Baseball League. Maury Turner, national syndicated cartoonist, and creator of We Pals.
The Larks were the part of the Negro Leagues, but the Larks existed before the Negro Leagues. The Larks Club was a nightclub on Sacramento Street who sponsored the Larks. They played here in Berkeley at San Pablo Park.
It was exciting to see them play because some of those players were just so good.
All around the country, the Negro Leagues were flourishing. But some of the game's great players, like Josh Gibson, Cool Papa Bell, and Judy Johnson, would never make the major leagues.
And we felt that it was a shame that they weren't getting a chance to play in what we call then the big leagues.
Lionel Wilson was born in New Orleans, the oldest of 8 children. He would graduate from UC Berkeley with a master's degree and become a lawyer and a judge. Later, he was elected the first black mayor of Oakland.
He loved baseball. He loved Oakland. He was an Oakland man.
I remember him as an outfielder, a fast, speedy outfielder.
Lionel could cover a center field with the grace and range of a Joe DiMaggio. And it was only 2 or 3 years after Lionel was playing with the Larks that Jackie Robinson broke the color line.
Integration was slow, but it had finally arrived.
My earliest memory, I think, was when my dad used to tell us about Jackie Robinson.
I got calls from L.A. They said, we're going to think of putting Jackie Robinson as a first ball player to try for the majors. I said, I want to tell you something. He's a great ball player, tremendous athlete, but his temper, I don't think he could take what they will do with all the people, how miserable they are, because there's so many bigots in this world. So I said I would try Ken Washington, who also was a big star with UCLA. And fortunately, they didn't listen to me because they started with Jackie Robinson. He did pretty well.
Randy had this shirt with the number 42 on it. That's Jackie Robinson's number.
I remember going down to Los Angeles playing against him. I played second base for Cal, and he played shortstop for UCLA. And he'd get on first base, and he'd cup his hands. Now I'm going to steal second on the next pitch. And our guys all hated him because he was so cocky, but good.
In the Pacific Coast League, integration had begun. In San Diego, it was John Ritchie, Luke Easter, and Minnie Minoso. In Oakland, Artie Wilson joined the Oakland Oaks. Just 1 year before, he had hit .402 for the Birmingham Black Barons of the Negro Leagues, becoming the last player in professional baseball to hit over 400 in a season. And it was 7 years after Ted Williams accomplished the same feat in the major leagues.
Artie Wilson played with Satchel Paige. Great guy, a great player, outstanding leadoff man.
Wilson would make the major leagues in 1951 with the New York Giants. He'd get only 22 at-bats before being replaced by a promising young rookie by the name of Willie Mays. From 1903 to 1955, the Oakland Oaks played in the Pacific Coast League. Many would call it the third major league.
The athletes in the Pacific Coast League were comparable with those playing in the major leagues. The Oaks ballpark was at 40th and San Pablo, and we'd go there before the game and wait outside during practice time to try to catch a baseball.
The fans were right next to the players. They were very, very close to home plate.
It was a fine baseball field.
Almost every weekend, the thing would catch a fire, throw a cigar or something down on the floor, and it would start burning and create a little fire. But it was a very, very old park.
They were called the 9 Old Men. Many were over 30 years old. Some, like 19-year-old Billy Martin, were on their way up, and others were on their way down.
They would end their career in the minor league.
Casey Stengel, who had been a manager in the major leagues, came to the Oaks and was the manager.
Veterans Ernie Lombardi, Billy Raimondi, Harry Cookie Lavagetto, Nick Etten, and Brooks Holder were a few of the players Casey Stengel would manage in 1948. It was his 9 old men that would bring Oakland its first championship in over 20 years.
And that catapulted Casey Stengel to the Yankees, where he stayed for 10 or 11 years after that. He became world famous.
Mel Dezaboo, a 29-year-old outfielder on the Oaks in 1948, was born in Oakland and had watched the Oaks as a kid.
I was the next in line as far as youth goes. I was about 10 years older than Billy Martin. All those fellas were quite old, and that's where the 9 old men came from. We had a very, very good team.
By 1960, the Negro Leagues and the Pacific Coast League had played their last games. Major League Baseball would soon arrive in Oakland, but memories of the game's earlier days remain.
In 1956, Billy Martin, who was my roommate with Oakland, invited me back to New York when the Yankees played the Dodgers. And I was in the stands there, and he happened to tell Casey Stengel, "No, Dezaboo's up in the stands." Casey said, "Bring him down here." So the cops were all guarding the gates and everything, so Billy told the cop, bring me down there. So Casey sat me in the dugout next to him. There must have been about 50 reporters with their cameras, and they said, "Who's this guy, Casey?" He said, "This little guy is the damnest line drive hitter you ever saw. He's one of the reasons I got back up here." Jesus, I felt 10 feet tall. That was a true story.
Mel Dezaboo never made the major leagues, yet he was part of the game's history. Through his eyes, we see baseball's great moments, which to many of us exist only as old photos with long-forgotten captions. It is baseball's past, which links us to our own and makes this game the great American pastime.